Peace. My name is Allah Faber. I'm the creator and owner of BabyBeautiful.co, which is an online baby store that we sell baby clothes. Today is December 24th, 2017. So I get an opportunity to do a video before the ending of this cycle of the 12-month period. We don't, in my nation, call it the new year because the new year doesn't start on January 1st for us, so we don't classify that as being a new year. The new year in our nation starts according to historical records in the history of African people. We acknowledge the new year during the period of the equinox, which starts in March. It's actually when the cycle changes that takes place in the universe. It's called the equinox. Now, if you don't know what that means, then you would have to look that up to find out exactly how that ties in with how we acknowledge the new year. But anyway, I want to bring another video from online baby store, which is BabyBeautiful.co. I'm the creator and owner of that, and each week I do a video to bring updates or to inform the public about the online baby store itself. So this month, in the last cycle of this month, this will be the video for that period. And each week I often deal with something that pertains to the babies, because as you can see in the background, the logo of our online baby store is that of a black baby, because that is the image that I've selected to use for the online baby store itself, because it's consistent with the tradition and history of my way of life, which is what Allah, who established the nation of gods and earth, called the 5% nation also, he told us to save the babies, they're the greatest. So I always use that logo, and I'm always mindful of saving the babies because they are the greatest. So that's why the online baby store focuses mainly on the babies, because that's our mission. And we want to make sure that that's well understood with the public, because this is not just for selling baby clothes, but it's for the purpose of developing an economic base so that we'll be able to start building economically businesses, to build communities, to secure the future generations of our people. And it starts with saving the babies, because he taught us that the babies are the greatest. So with that, I want to let you know that today's presentation that I'm going to deal with is going to be surrounding DNA. Now, I know that many people are unaware of what DNA means, so I'm going to give a little history scientifically about DNA. And the reason why I chose to do today's video pertaining to DNA. Now, DNA, the initials DNA, stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, DNA is the blueprint of life. It is the atoms that formulate what we know as life. DNA is in everything. So I want to deal with how it actually formulates itself into the things that we know and call life, that exist in life itself. Now, I want to also define what life is. Life is the eternal and everlasting energy, force, and power that is forever changing in existence. Now, let me say that again. Life is the eternal and everlasting force, energy, and power that is forever changing in existence. Now, this is a presentation that deals with something that goes to the very essence and core of life itself. And the reason why I chose to deal with this in particular is because I've seen that throughout the course of my experience and knowledge, I've seen that many of us don't really understand how life is really formulated in our very existence. I mean, of course, we know that, a child was born and all that, but we don't understand the real integral details of how that takes place and how it shapes another human being to come into existence. We don't really understand that process. Because if we did, we would have the kind of respect for ourselves and life itself. But many of us don't even have that. And it starts with understanding that whole process of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, which is actually atoms shaping what we see as existence today. We often call it life. But that takes place, and there's a process of it taking place within ourselves as human beings. Because those atoms of the DNA produces cells, and those cells start to develop into what we know as tissues, and all of those different processes that it goes through is what formulates the human being. And I don't think we really understand that process or respect the process, because if we did, we would have the kind of understanding about each other. I'm talking about the black man and the black woman. Whether they be young, middle age, or older. I'm saying we need to understand that process, because many of us deal with each other so loosely and disrespectfully that we don't even acknowledge that this is actually taking place. This is one of the reasons why we have so many problems in black man and black woman relationships, whether they be young, middle age, or old. We still have a lot of problems when it comes to relationships. So I want to really focus on how we need to understand DNA and how it formulates itself to shape what we know as life. Now, in 1994, an important situation took place. And I want to mention that to show you the importance of DNA. In 1994, O.J. Simpson was accused of killing his wife and her friend, Ronald Goldman. He was accused of killing Nicole Simpson and Ronald Goldman. That happened in June of 1994. Now, when the case happened, it became so widely spreaded because O.J. Simpson was a well-known Hollywood and public figure that had played football, and he also was an actor that had many roles in movies and stuff like that. He did commercials and all. So he was a well-known figure. When he was accused of the murder of his ex-wife, because they're saying at the time he was divorced from her, when he was accused of the murder of his ex-wife and her friend, Ronald Goldman, he decided that he wanted to have a team of lawyers to represent him. And the person that stood out on that team of lawyers that became a household name and widely recognized, not just in America, but throughout the world, that lawyer was a black lawyer, and his name was Johnnie Cochran. Now, Johnnie Cochran was known for a long time in California for defending blacks who had run-ins with police officers, blacks that were abused by police officers, killed by police officers, or was killed as a result of other incidents, and he wound up representing them. And you know, they were poor people. And Johnnie Cochran was looked upon as like one of the lawyers that would take the cases and represent blacks in a criminal court system. So he was well known by blacks in California for years for defending them and taking on their cases. But he would become more well known and would become a household name when he decided to take the case of O.J. Simpson. It was him, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey. These are just some of the most well-known, recognized names of lawyers that was on O.J. Simpson's defense team. The trial would go on for a whole year, almost a year and a half, and it would captivate the nation. This trial would be on TV every day. Now, at the time that the O.J. Simpson case happened, many people didn't know whether he was innocent or guilty of the murders. But it captivated people in America to the point where they would watch it every day on TV. His trial was televised every day, all day, and practically almost all night. It would captivate the whole nation. But it wasn't O.J. himself that was captivating the nation. It was what the trial was really about. O.J. Simpson was married to a white woman, and he was being accused of killing this white woman and her friend, who was a white man. Well, come to find out that she was in a relationship with the white man. It wasn't just her friend. You know, sometimes you have where people use these terms that really don't mean what it means. So he found out that he was in a relationship with her. But anyway, what stood out so much in the O.J. Simpson case was the questioning of whether he was the person that actually committed the crime. So they had to use DNA to determine whether he was the person that actually killed both of them, or was it someone else? Now, the O.J. Simpson trial highlighted DNA unlike it ever had been highlighted before. Because most people never even heard of DNA, didn't even know what DNA was, didn't know that DNA could be used better than a fingerprint to determine if a person was guilty of a crime or not. So the trial became bigger than O.J. Simpson himself, because DNA became the key factor in determining whether O.J. Simpson would be guilty or not. That was argued every day by his defense team. And it was argued against by the prosecutors, who was Marsha Clark, a white woman, and Christopher Darden, who was a black man. They would argue that O.J. Simpson was guilty of these crimes. Of course, that's, what prosecutors do. Their job is to prosecute people for crimes that they are accused of committing. Not that they committed the crime, but the prosecutor's job is to prosecute people that they believe have committed the crime. Well, not actually that they believe, but rather that they can prove actually committed the crime or are accused of committing the crime. Because that is controversial as to whether they can prove cases of people actually committing crimes. Because I know the law, so I know in many cases, prosecutors don't prove their case. It's just that they are able to sway a jury to convict people of crimes. Now, whether they innocent or guilty, they're able to sway a jury with what they call circumstantial evidence to convict people. Well, anyway, that did not happen in the OJ case. In the OJ case, Johnnie Cochran, who was his star attorney, he headed the whole legal defense team of O.J. Simpson. They was able to prove to the jury after a year and more, they was able to prove that O.J. Simpson was not the one that committed the crime. Now, of course, people still today believe that O.J. Simpson committed the crime, but they was able to refute the evidence that was presented by the prosecutors to say that O.J. Simpson actually committed this crime. But it captivated the nation for that whole time period. And DNA was the key factor that was used to determine that O.J. Simpson was actually not the one that committed the crime, or that the prosecutors was unable to prove that he was the one. That doesn't mean that he didn't do it, but they was unable to prove that he actually did it. Whereas Johnnie Cochran and his legal defense team was able to show doubt in the evidence that was presented by the prosecutors. And a major part of that was the DNA. That was really what they was using to try to prove their case against O.J. Simpson. Now, after he was found not guilty, because in the trial, they either find you innocent or not guilty. Or they either find you guilty or not guilty. Now, they don't determine whether you're innocent, but they can determine whether you're either guilty or not guilty. So they determined he was not guilty. So as a result of that, he walked out of the courtroom. Now, the reason why I went through this whole thing to mention that case is because it was the O.J. Simpson case that actually opened the door for DNA to be used now all throughout America to challenge a lot of the cases that people had been found guilty of and had been sentenced to death sentences as well as life in prison sentences. without parole. Now, many of the people that was convicted of these crimes before the O.J. Simpson case never was convicted using DNA. So now, because the O.J. Simpson case had established DNA as being the major factor in determining whether someone was guilty of a crime or not guilty of a crime, now it was used for all of these different cases of people who was wrongfully convicted of crimes before the O.J. Simpson case. The DNA was never used to determine them being guilty of that crime. So it wasn't O.J. Simpson himself, it was what his case had established as a result of the case being tried in the court system. It opened the door now for hundreds and thousands of people, mainly blacks, to get out of prison that was doing life sentences without parole, on death row, had murders. Now they was able to challenge their convictions in the court system. In fact, one of the lawyers that was on O.J. Simpson's legal defense team, because he had several lawyers that did different things on his defense team. Well, one of those lawyers, Barry Scheck, who really handled the DNA part of the trial, he later established something called the Innocent Project, where now they was challenging a lot of cases in court of people that was convicted, wrongfully convicted, and they never used DNA to convict them. So now they were challenging the courts with many of these cases with the DNA and getting out a lot of brothers out of prison and on death row. Now, I think that was the best part of the O.J. Simpson case, because it actually opened the door for so many people to get out of prison, mainly black people, because, you know, in most of these cases, it's always black people that are being convicted. So mainly black people, but his case opened the door for hundreds and thousands of blacks to get out of prison, using DNA to show that they could not have possibly committed this crime. In fact, the Central Park jogger case, where 5 brothers was accused of raping a jogger, and this was many years ago, they was accused and convicted of raping this jogger in Central Park. Now she didn't die, but they was accused and convicted of raping her. And they spent a lot of years in prison before they was able to get out as a result of DNA. So this DNA became a major thing after the O.J. Simpson trial. So many people was able to go back to the court system and now challenge them on their conviction. So I want you to understand how important DNA is. That's why I went through that whole thing with the O.J. Simpson case. Now, if you want more on that, you can read Johnnie Cochran's book, Journey to Justice, where he outlines the whole trial, what happened, and everything. I would recommend that you read the book because the book is very good, well informative about not just the O.J. Simpson case, but it goes into what actually happened, and it really gives you a lot of what never came out in the O.J. Simpson case. So I would recommend you attempt to get that book. If it's still in print, I don't even know if it's still in print because it came out after the O.J. Simpson trial. So O.J. Simpson trial ended in 95. So the book came out right after that. Now, I don't know if you can find the book, but the name of the book is called The Journey to Justice by Johnnie Cochran, if you want to know more about that. But I use that particular case because I wanted to really show the importance of DNA, how that really is the blueprint for life itself. DNA is the blueprint for life itself. No one on the planet has the same DNA. Everybody's DNA is different. So no one has the same DNA. Now, when I think of DNA, I think of the many different relationships and sexual encounters that people have with each other, and how we don't really take this really serious. You have women that they lay down with all type of men, not realizing that each one of these men that they lay down with are transmitting DNA in them. And they have all type of different men dealing with them. And it's on the same side with the men, laying down with all kinds of different women. And you have all this DNA exchanging with each other. But it would be more on the woman because it's through her that the child is developed and formed in her womb. So this is very, very important in terms of looking at how DNA develops in life itself. So I think that when I decided to do the video about DNA, I was thinking about all of that. Because as a young man, yeah, I dealt with a whole lot of different young women, but that was when I was, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I was a young man. But since that time period, I've been very cautious and very careful in the selection of women that I decide to deal with. Now, I became conscious of that for a number of reasons. But the number one reason is that I really developed an understanding with having respect for myself as well as for black women. To the point where I don't just look at sex as just an act that I commit with a woman. That is the black woman, because I don't deal with any other woman, black woman. I began to see that as being more than just an act, but a sacred commitment that we were actually making to one another. That out of the respect for each other, we made a decision to deal with one another. And that a lot come with that, a lot of responsibility. Our values, our morals, our principles, our actions and our behavior, all of that comes into play. And thinking about the future of where this is going. See, when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I wasn't thinking about none of that. You're a young man, you ain't thinking about none of that. You doing what the average young person do. You're meeting young women and you're having sex. But I'm very glad and fortunate that I learned at a very young age the value and importance of sex. How important that is, and even more, the value and importance of myself and the value and importance of the black woman. I'm very glad that I learned that at a young age, because had I not learned that at that time period, I would have had a negative effect on the lives of so many young black women that I came in contact with throughout those years. Just as many young black men have had a negative effect and are still having a negative effect on the lives of so many young black women. And the reverse is also true. Many young black women are having a negative effect on the lives of so many young black men. So when we deal with this, we don't deal with it just from one perspective. Like the woman is the victim and no. they both are responsible for the decisions that they make, whether they are conscious or unconscious, whether they know or don't know, whether they are aware or not aware. They both made the decision to deal with each other. So not no get caught up in this, the woman is the victim. No. Because I dealt with seeing and experiencing and going through and talking to a lot of brothers and sisters. And many of them don't know what they're doing. They're just doing it. They don't know what they're doing. They don't take into account all the factors that involve in dealing with sexual relationships or relationships, period. So you got a lot of DNA just flying all around with each other. And that is very important because when we get into the scientific aspect of the role that DNA plays in the development and the shaping of life itself, and we understand that process, we would not just freely deal with sexual relationships with just anybody. No, we would enter that with the mind, intelligence, and the understanding that this is a serious decision that we make. But because we live in a society, in a world now where sex has became like water that you drink, that's how it became. Where people just do it freely. And they have no real understanding of what they're doing. This is why we have so many children being produced in the world today. A lot of babies are born as a result of them just having sex. There was no preparation. There was no commitment. None of that. They just agreed to have sex. And as a result, well, she got pregnant and had the baby. And this is really creating more and more of a problem for us as a people. Because we have the power to really prevent this from happening by the choices that we make and the people that we decide to make those choices with. Because it's no secret that many brothers make bad choices in women, and many women make bad choices in men. And as a result, it produces a child that both of them wind up going through all kinds of problems, even through the court system with child custody battles and all that. It's became so messy and so messed up where it is affecting how the child is developing, and it's affecting the life of the child. This is something that's been going on for years, and it's still going on, and will continue to go on until we start really seriously looking at the choices that we make and where those choices are coming from, the base of those choices. Because we make choices based upon our values, our morals, our principles. That is how we make choices. Now, if you don't have the proper values, morals, and principles, then you're going to make bad choices. And in many cases, that's what happens. We make bad choices because we don't have the proper values, morals, and principles. So our actions and our behavior is bad. And we have to understand that many of us don't even understand science, period. We don't study, or some of us, we go to school, but we don't learn these things. These are things you have to learn on your own, because school is not going to actually take you through that. A lot of things that you learn, you have to learn that on your own. School is not going to teach you those things. Now, one of the important books that I read some years ago in my research, studying, and reading throughout the years that I was doing that, one of the most important books that I read during that time was written by John G. Jackson, who was a historian, black historian. He wrote Man, God, and Civilization. That's the name of the book, Man, God, and Civilization. And in that book, he said man went through 3 stages: magic, religion, and science. And he said we are still at the last stage. Now let me say that again. In his book, John G. Jackson, the black historian, in his book, Man, God, and Civilization, he said man has went through 3 stages. Now, those 3 stages he defined as magic, religion, and science. And he said we are still at the last stage. Because in the beginning stages of development of human history, man was still developing and learning and growing how to interact with society, how to formulate societies, communities, how to develop as people on a planet, period. And in these stages of development, he's talking about the stage of magic, the stage of religion, and then the stage of science. Now, you still have today where people believe in religion. Now, magic is not something that people, we way past that stage. But religion, we are still in that stage where people, you can't even begin to talk about religion with people. That is a heated discussion. To the point where people will get emotional. Not only that, but they go to the point where they're ready to kill, fight and kill for religion. Now, science, which is the last stage that he said we are still at, that is the most accurate of them all. Meaning, between those three, magic, religion, and science, science is the most accurate. I mean, when we think of science, we think of facts, actual proof, not theories, ideologies, or beliefs. No, we think of facts, actual proof. I mean, we deal with it every day. The water that I'm drinking, that's not a belief, that's science. When you go to school and you learn about H2O, which is the gases of hydrogen and oxygen, you learn about water. That's science. That's not a theory. That's not a belief. No, that's actual fact. We use it in our everyday life. When you cut the light on, everything we use in our everyday life is based on science. It's not based upon religion, not based upon magic. It's based upon science. And science is actual fact. We actually using this in our everyday life. So that's why he said science, and we are still at that stage. So it's magic, religion, and science. And he said we are still at that stage of science. So when we deal with science, we have to deal with DNA. Because that is the blueprint for what we look at every day in what we call life. Now, I was always fascinated by this when I got knowledge of self. Before that, I didn't know anything, so it didn't even matter. But when I got knowledge of self, I realized that when I began to study the teachings, a lot of the teachings was surrounded and geared towards being able to prove things factually, scientifically. So it pushed me in that direction of being able to show and prove. We have a saying that it's about showing and proving. If you can't show and prove something, then we don't accept it as being truth. It's about showing and proving with us. Yeah, you can say a lot of things. Many people talk and they say a whole lot of things. But it's about showing and proving. We don't deal with theories, ideologies, beliefs, concepts. No. No, it's about showing and proving. If you can't show and prove what you're saying, then don't expect me or anybody to accept it as being truth. And that's what the court of law is supposed to be based upon. In the O.J. Simpson case, it was about whether the prosecutors can prove their case. It wasn't a matter of whether he was innocent or guilty. It was a matter of whether they can prove that he actually killed his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, because she did have Brown in the middle of her name, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. That's what it boiled down to. Whether they can prove that he actually did this. Well, they was unable to do that. And he went free. So science plays the major role in our everyday life, in everything we do, and everything we deal with. So when we think of DNA, just think of the blueprint for life itself. How those atoms formulate those cells and it develops into what we see in the physical form as life itself. So when you think of DNA, think of that. We often just use the initials because, most people wouldn't even be able to pronounce it. So you have a lot of different terminologies that we use, just initials. It makes it more easier for people to remember it because many people can't pronounce it anyway. But I thought I would pronounce it for you in this video so you would be able to at least pronounce it or know how the pronunciation is. So that's why I pronounced it. But most of the time when you say DNA, people are familiar with they're familiar with, the initials, but they may not be able to tell you exactly what it is or pronounce what it stands for, but they basically probably have some idea of what you're talking about. That's some people. That's not all people. A lot of people don't know what you're talking about when you say DNA. But some people will have some kind of idea of what you're talking about. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this video, because I wanted to make it well known in the video so that people can understand the importance of what DNA is and how we don't even acknowledge it at all when we deal with each other in relationships or sexual encounters that we have. We don't have none of that on our mind. We're not thinking about that. No, we just doing what we doing. We ain't thinking about none of that. But I think it's very important that we understand how all of this formulates life itself, how we have to look at this as something sacred, not something that we just freely deal with each other. Because we live in a sex-crazed society and world where pornography has become an accepted norm. Yeah, pornography. You can go right on the internet and look at pornography anytime. It's an accepted norm. In fact, you have so many people, I'm talking about young men and women on the internet having sex with each other. And they are video recording them having sex with each other. for the world to see. This is not something that they're doing just for their personal. They doing this for the world to see because they put it on YouTube for the world to see it. So if you put it on YouTube, you don't care who sees you having sex. And this is something that I say, it shows that we have no respect for the sacredness of sex, our own bodies, and who we decide to have a relationship with, and who we decide to give our own bodies to. We have no respect. We just do it with anybody, anywhere, at any time. I mean, some of the stuff that you see on the internet is crazy. When you go to these pornography sites, it is crazy. I mean, this is stuff that you couldn't even begin to imagine that people would even actually be doing, let alone putting it on YouTube. Oh, it is crazy. It shows that as a society and as a world, we have no respect for ourselves, for sex, or for life itself. We have no respect. This is the stage that we have come to as a society and as a world. That's why, I highly respect when I see women that dress very respectful and not real provocative and real sexual. I respect that to the utmost. And I see it with a lot of women that are conscious of themselves and they have respect for themselves. That they dress in a way that respects themselves, their body, their family, and the society in which they live. Their dress says all of that to me. The kind of respect they have for themselves, their family, their bodies, and the society in which they live. It speaks to their values, their morals, and their principles. Now, on the other hand, the same thing applies to the way women dress that is very provocative and sexual. It says the disrespect that they have for themselves, their bodies, their families, and the society in which they live. It speaks to their values, their morals, and their principles. Now, I don't care how you try to dress that up or what you try to make it to be. But the reality is what it is. Now, as a young man, I didn't know anything about that. When I see a young woman, I'm looking like any young man. I'm looking at her ass, I'm looking at, titties, I'm looking at her shape, I'm looking at, how she look. Yeah, because that's how we've been conditioned. That's the kind of behavior that we are under. And it's as a result of our condition, our state of mind. See, if we had the proper values, morals, and principles, we would not be looking at women like that. We would see the person, the human being, the woman, not her physical features that defines who she is. But it's also on the side of the woman. If she is not dressing like that, then a man can't look at her like that. So it's on both sides. It's not just on the man's side. No, it's also on the woman's side. If she wasn't dressing like that, he would not be able to view her like that. And if they both come from the same values, morals, and principles, then they wouldn't even have that mindset or behavior at all, period. So none of that would take place. So they would have the kind of respect for themselves, their family, their bodies, and the society in which they live. So that when they dealt with each other, that respect would automatically be there. That is something that we are just missing. That's why we have so many women taken advantage of, and so many children, babies being born in the world as a result of just having sex. Now there was nothing in it. It was just having sex. There was nothing in it. Not for him or for her. It just happened. Now when children are born in the world like that, what kind of, what kind of life are they going to have? How are they going to develop? How are they going to grow? What kind of values, morals, and principles are they going to have if they was produced as a result of just two people that had sex? Saying, what does that say about how these children are going to develop and grow in the world? We're talking about human beings that were created by two people just having sex. It's more to that than just making a decision to have sex with each other. But we have lost that as a people. It's just completely gone. So I respect when I see young Black men and women that have enough respect for themselves and the decency to decide to be with each other and have a family and raise children, rather than just having sex and just having babies all over the place. Because then you become a part of the problem and not a part of the solution. I think this is something that we seriously have to look at. That's why I decided to deal with DNA in this video today. Because if we understood the integral details of how life is developed, we would have more respect for the decisions that we make. To do the things that we do. Our behavior, our actions, our values, morals, and principles. Many of us don't have any of that. We just live day by day and just do whatever comes to our mind. We act more like animals than human beings. We have all over the internet, we have men and women. I'm talking about young men and women. I'm talking about black men and women, young black men and women having sex, and they putting it on the internet. For the world to see. And you ask, what kind of mindset would do that? What is the purpose of doing? You putting this on the internet for everybody to see you at your most intimate moments? What? It is sickening. It says that we are sick as a people. We still suffer so much. I'm talking about mentally as a people, that we would do things like this to ourselves. We're not doing it to nobody else, we're doing it to ourselves. Young girls on the internet having sex, oral, anal, and regular sex, just like it's nothing. And the young men that's doing it, they doing the same thing like it's nothing. They don't see anything wrong with this. It is so sick and disgusting. And many of us don't even see anything wrong with it. Some people just, now, if you, whatever you decide to do in the privacy of your home, that is your business. But when you make it public by putting it on the internet, putting it on YouTube, it's no longer your business. Now, it is there for the world to see. So it's totally different now than in the privacy of your home. What you do in the privacy of your home with whomever you decide to do it with, well, that's your choice. No one will know about it anyway because it's in the privacy of your home. Only somebody that should be knowing about that is you and the person that you're dealing with. But when it becomes in the public, that's when it's sick. That's when it is disgusting. So I think we need to really, really look at the choices that we make and the behavior that we display to the world. Because this says something about our state of mind, the sickness that we are under, that it doesn't even mean anything to us to do this. Young, beautiful black women and young, handsome black men. Why are you doing this to yourself? This is sick and disgusting. But again, I said, they don't know. Values, morals, and principles, they lack. And this is the hardest thing to really deal with when you're dealing with a lot of them. Because they don't know what they don't know. If they don't know what they don't know, then how are you going to reach them? That is definitely something that we need to seriously look at. In our own families, people that we know, friends, because sometimes even family members don't even pay you no attention. Don't listen to what you have to say. Whatever you're saying, they don't care. Doesn't even matter to them. So I think we need to do more and do better in terms of how we live our own lives and how we affect the lives of others, the kind of impact that we have on others around us and that we deal with. Because that plays a role in how we are able to help them change their mindset. I think that is something that we need to really look at in our own individual lives. Because it is not the society and the world that is sick. It is the people in the world. If they leave today or tomorrow, the world is going to still be the same. The society is going to still be the same. It's the people. They have to change their behavior, change their actions, change their values, morals, and principles. And I want to see that happen. That's why I always have a message for young mothers and fathers that are raising their babies today, along with the online baby store. I bring a message, not just that I want to sell baby clothes. No. It's much more deeper than that and more bigger than you could possibly imagine. I'm talking about economic development, building communities, changing the values, morals, and principles, the actions and behaviors of the future generations. We already experienced and went through what we went through. Now it's time to really prepare them for tomorrow where they don't have to go through it. We can't do that if we are unwilling to acknowledge within ourselves what is happening. So I think that is something that we need to actually deal with as a people. So I'm going to end this video right now with this. Thanking all those that supported the online baby store by purchasing products, and welcoming all those who have yet to do that. Let's change the way we deal with things as a people. Let's develop an economic base for ourselves so that we can build communities and in turn secure the future of our babies with the proper values, morals, and principles and actions and behavior that they will be respected in the world. Let's do that. But we can't do that if we don't support what is already happening on the positive aspect of us developing economically so that we can build businesses and build communities to secure the future. Let's do that. So go to babybeautiful.co and start ordering products if you've not already done so. And join the family. Become a part of what we're doing. Don't be left behind. Don't just sit on the sidelines and talk about the problem. Become a part of the solution. So with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to you and the family.